Okay guys, welcome back to the video series on the spheres of control. If you missed the introduction, no big deal. I'll put the card right here. And if you want to know more about the channel, head on to the homepage and read more about it. So let's dive right in. So to start off, let's establish like a common definition that we can go by. It's when we can execute a decision and control the outcome of that decision. That is how we'll define what we put in this control sphere. Now, the control sphere is the smallest sphere for a reason. That's because in life, there's very little things that we actually control. Even though we think we might have control, there's very little things that we do. So a lot of things in our professional lives and our personal lives, life is dealing with shitty hands all the time, like boom, shitty hand, fuck you, right? Like all kinds of shitty hands being dealt our way, and we don't have control over so much of it, and that's why the sphere is very tiny. Okay, let's get into some professional workplace examples to help highlight what is actually in this control sphere, okay? So the first thing is I control when I wake up, for the most part. When I leave, when I set my alarm, when I go to work, what I wear that day, right? Very simple things. I'm not talking about like the power goes out. I see you out there analyzing, all right? I'm just talking very simple stuff here. The level of effort that I exert when I'm there, right? When I actually show up and I log in or I go to the site or whatever's going on there, I control my level of effort in what I'm doing. Now, to help highlight this, let's talk about what we don't control. I don't control what others think about me. I don't control what my bosses or subordinates think about me. I don't control the profit margins of my company. Now, this may seem like very simple stuff, and it's things that we think about all the time, but we don't control these things, okay? So taking what others think about me, I might be concerned about that. There might be a place for me to influence what folks think about me or to influence my company's profit margins, but we're not talking about that. We're not talking about influence. We're not talking about concern, right? Pay attention to the spheres. We're talking about control, and I don't control any of that shit. There are tons of books and speakers and material out there where it's like, take control of your life and take control of work and take control of this and take control of that. Man, fuck that. You know, we do not have that level of control. Life doesn't work that way. There's very simple things that we control, but it's important that we control those things because when we do, then we can properly sort of bin everything else. Okay, so that's good for the professional examples. Let's go into some personal examples here, and I'll expand on some or not. So I control whether I spend time with my loved ones or friends. Right? Very simple. Whether they want to spend time with me or not, I don't know. I don't control that. But I control whether I send them a text and I reach out and I want to hang out with them, right? Those are things I control. I control my diet, right? And my fitness choices, what I put in my mouth, you know, whether it's going to be a cookie or a banana or, you know, however you navigate the food pyramid, that's up to you. But whether I get off my ass and go for a mile run or whether I sit on my ass, right? I mean, these are simple things that for the most part I control. Now, obviously there are edge cases here, right? You know, there's dietary restrictions and, you know, some folks watching this may be injured, right? So I'm not talking about those fuzzy edge cases there. I'm just talking for the most part. I control my media intake and what I watch, right? I mean, we control what feeds we follow. We control on social media, like what we're watching and what we ascribe to and how our opinions are formed. Those are things that are all within our control. There are so many books and gurus out there that are like, how to be the better you and 6 steps towards being the better us and 3 ways to implement being a better you or whatever, right? And I get that they all come from a good spot, and obviously for intent, I agree with anybody who, you know, tries to prove themselves in any way whatsoever. However, the problem with a lot of this rhetoric is it doesn't take into account that life is an unforgiving, life-sucking predator and doesn't give a shit about all the good intentions because sometimes it just hits us upside the head. Now, I feel like there is somebody out there that can help me drive this point home.
You one ugly motherfucker.
Yeah, thanks Arnold. That was actually very helpful. I appreciate it. Okay, so we just ran through some very quick professional and personal illustrations there. You might be thinking, wow, that was not very complicated, but the control sphere is not complicated. It's very simple. And the reason why we kept these examples simple and went down that route is because we have to realize, we have to calibrate how we see the control sphere. Because a lot of things I brought up on this list, you're like, no, Daniel, I think about that shit all the time. And yes, but you don't have control over a lot of that stuff. And I don't have control over a lot of that stuff. And if we don't calibrate how we're seeing those things, then we'll produce completely unnecessary anxiety and false expectations in our professional and personal lives. So let's calibrate it. Let's get this right. Okay, so on this channel, we like to do illustrations to help drive some points home. So here's some things that happen in sort of my personal and professional life that were not in my control sphere and sort of highlight how life just, doesn't play favorites. I started a job at the government a while back, and I was furloughed after 3 weeks after being in the military for 10 years. So it's like, man, I had all this stability, and then I go to get what I thought was more stability, and then I get fired after 3 weeks. Cool, thanks. Put in 50, 60 hours a week on a project, my boss pulls the plug. Wow, that's always encouraging when you're working when you're working on something 50, 60 hours a week for about 6 months and it just gets pulled for no reason. You're out there, you might be going through the same thing. We don't control that, but life doesn't give a shit because it just happens. Sort of on a personal level, right? I view myself as, a decent father and, try to eat right and exercise and all the good things you're supposed to do, and had my first son, and he was healthy or whatever, and pretty normal. And then my second son was born with autism, right? And so I thought to myself, well, what the fuck, right? Why do I deserve to have a child with special needs, right? I controlled everything, right? I controlled my diet, I controlled what I put in my body, I controlled everything that I possibly could, and this is what I got, a child with special needs. What the fuck is that about, right? But at the end of the day, you gotta remember, I don't control that. And life quickly reminds you, it's gonna give you the hand that it fucking wants to give you, and that's just the way it goes, okay? And, it contributed to my maturation, because then I start to think, well, who does deserve that, right? If not me, then who, right? Who should have the child with special needs, right? So life makes us feel so insignificant when we realize exactly how much control we do not have. So when we do have it, when we actually can control something, let's control it. All right, that's it for the control sphere. I hope you guys got something out of it. If you're feeling it, like, subscribe, all that stuff. If you're not, I'll try to do better next time. Head on back for the influence sphere because it's coming up. Thanks for watching Daniel D For Real. Take care of yourselves.